Good morning and welcome to Downtown Download. I'm just going to let a few of our guests come in before I start. Thank you for joining us today. I know our guest is bringing them out. Eric Reed, we're talking about 5G and we know people want to hear about it. So thank you, thank you. Good morning again. Thank you to everybody for participating this morning and welcome to this week's Downtown Download. I'm Shalonda Stokes and I have the pleasure of serving as the president of Downtown Partnership. I'm joined today by Councilman Costello, my co-host as always, and we have a special guest who's also one of my bosses, a board member, Eric Fitzgerald Reed. He's going to talk to us today about 5G. So we're going to get that download in a minute. Before we get to him, I actually have two Erics today. That's funny. I was gonna say before we get to Eric, but before we get to him, let me tell you about a few things that are happening downtown. And then I'll transition it to Councilman Costello to give us anything, if there's anything happening in the city. I don't want to steal too much of his thunder. I know voting is important right now. And so, I do want to make sure that we do that. I would like to say to Sue, thank you, Sue Carlin. We've added closed captioning to our Downtown Download webinars. And so you should be able to see that as an option. This is our first time doing it. And so we're working through the process. If anybody has challenges, please let us know with that. But we look forward to having that available for all of our Downtown Download webinars moving forward. So thank you so much for that. Going back to voting though, I cannot stress enough how important this next, 8 days left is going to be that we get out the vote. I actually went yesterday to make sure that my vote was counted. And we know there are several voting centers throughout Maryland. We have one right here in downtown at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Councilman Costello, I see you're repping a Morgan shirt. I know when I read, they said that Morgan's center was just, the line was around the corner, down the street for hours. So people are really excited about it. But for a full list of those, you can go to the State Board of Elections webpage to see where you can go and vote. Want to talk about Halloween. This is actually, people don't know, this is actually one of my favorite holidays. I always dress up. And so, Halloween is going to feel a little bit different this year for most, but we don't, want to mean that it can't still be fun for some. Definitely want to make sure that it's safe. We're hosting at Downtown Partnership a spooktacular screening of Beetlejuice, and that'll be on October 30th. And so we're asking that you just grab a blanket and join us on the lawn in Center Plaza. Social distancing rules will be in effect, and we're going to limit crowd capacity. So we recommend that you RSVP in advance for that so that you can secure your spot. You can visit us on our website, godowntownbaltimore.com, to register. And the last thing I want to talk about, which is really important to us, we're going to have our annual meeting this year. It will be virtual, but we're still going to make sure that it's exciting. We had an incredibly busy year. We've gotten even bigger plans for 2021. And so we want to make sure you're the first to hear what that is and to enjoy just some of the presentations, see some of the recognitions that we're doing for people who are really making a difference in downtown. And we'll have a couple special presentations. We're going to have Henry Chamberlain. He's the president of the Building Owners and Managers Association International. They call it BOMA. So he'll be there to bring some words. And then we have Baltimore's own Wes Moore, the award-winning author and CEO of the Robin Hood Foundation. Councilman Costello, I know you'll be there representing. We have our City Council President, Brandon Scott, who will be there, Board Chair Mark Wasserman, just some special guests. So the event starts at 4:30 on the 12th. Please go to our website, godowntownbaltimore.com, to register for that now. So Councilman Costello, I'm gonna bring it back over to you before we give the full intro of our guest.
Thank you, Shalonda. Appreciate it. Great to be here again for another Downtown Download. A couple quick updates on the city end. Recycling service for both residential and commercial is expected to resume on November 1st. I'm not sure if that's still going to be the case, but I have a web page here that I'm keeping updated, and I will, if you want to come back to this at a later date, I will be sure to keep this updated for you. Let me just throw this in here for all panelists and attendees. Okay, that's the first item. The second item, the governor announced yesterday additional funding in the amount of $250 million for Maryland Strong, the Economic Recovery Initiative. That includes $50 million expansion of the state's COVID-19 grant fund, $50 million in direct relief for restaurants, $20 million for Main Streets, $20 million for a layoff aversion fund, a few other smaller items, as well as $100 million for emergency rapid response fund for small businesses. So as many of our listeners know, Shalonda and I head up the mayor's COVID-19 Small Business Recovery Task Force. So we're going to be meeting, in the coming days, working with the administration to figure out how to get this money out the door as quickly as humanly possible, all the while being above board and making sure every dollar is accounted for. And lastly, I'll just kind of, hit the point home that Shalonda made about voting. Please be sure to vote. This is a apolitical or a nonpartisan message. It doesn't matter who you're voting for. Just make sure that you get out there and vote. In a moment, I'm going to turn it back over to Shalonda. I have to dig up the link, but there's probably the most comprehensive guide to elections that's nonpartisan, comes from the Maryland League of Women Voters. And I know there's been a lot of questions about these different constitutional amendments at the state level and ballot questions at the city level. I would encourage everyone to check this guide out. It has responses from the candidates in their own words, so it's not edited. And the questions related to the constitutional amendments and ballot questions are very straightforward. This is how it currently works. If this passes, this is how it will work in the future. So there's no political spin to it. So I'll get that link in the chat, and Shalonda, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Councilman. So I'd like to just share that a few weeks ago, I know Verizon was in City Hall announcing that Baltimore will be its first 5G city in Maryland. So that's a big deal. I wish we had like some fake applause, like, yeah, for everybody here, but that's a big deal. So if you didn't already know, 5G technology will bring ultra fast data speeds that make movie streaming, online gaming, and all of that lightning fast. But more than that, 5G also has the potential to positively disrupt how we do our business, how our children learn, all of that. And so our guest today is Eric Reed. He's a Downtown Partnership Board member, as I mentioned, and the Vice President of Entertainment and Tech Policy for Verizon. He works to ensure that technology like this gets into the hands of all. And so we know that technology is a game changer. It has the ability to level the playing field. And so from innovative learning schools with STEM curriculum to tech workforce training initiatives, Eric and his team are increasing digital inclusion and helping bridge the digital divide. So we're excited to hear about that, what we're going to do down in downtown Baltimore. And so Councilman Costello, I know that he's busy. We appreciate him coming. Give him all of the hard questions and I'll take the easy ones on it. But after, I do want to ask everybody, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. And then after Councilman Costello gets through with his questions, I'll go back to the Q&A box and make sure we get your questions asked and answered as well. All right, Councilman, coming back to you.
Thank you, Shalonda. Eric, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it. Sorry. Looking forward to our discussion today. I know this topic is of a lot of interest and folks are really excited about it. I'm going to start right off. As Shalonda mentioned, 5G is really going to be a game changer. And it's not just for gamers, right? I think it's across the board. But before I get into the questions, I know you wanted to show a quick video that gives folks an idea of what this technology can do. So Lauren from the Downtown Partnership team, if you could please start up that video before we get started with the questions.
7-year-old little boy trapped in the bedroom. The little boy's screaming, they can all hear him. And they're searching, giving it their very best effort. No visibility, you just can't see. The screams eventually muffled. They just couldn't make it to him.
We had a young woman in her 40s with an acute heart attack. The total transfer time to get her to our hospital in Grand Rapids was 3 hours. There's a feeling of helplessness as a physician that you know what the treatment is to limit their heart attack, limit their chance of death, but you can't get to them.
Sometimes it's these horrible tragedies that lead us to look for new technologies that can help us do our jobs better.
We as innovators and technologists, we always push a little beyond word problems that are out there that need to be solved.
You really are risking your life every time you walk across the street.
If you want to start sparking change, ask difficult questions. Why don't you come in the fire with me? We used to teach that you had 15, 20 minutes to get out of your home. Today we tell you you have 15, 20 seconds.
A lot of people before me have been doing work to break the glass ceiling and provide a pathway to just break the whole ceiling and bring everybody through.
This is life-saving technology that helps everyone.
The goal is to entirely eliminate serious injuries by 2027.
It's a big leap forward to go from where we were then to what is able to be accomplished with 5G 5th generation.
I think we're going to see stuff that just wasn't possible, and you're going to look back and marvel at it.
Thank you, Lauren. So Eric, Verizon announced Baltimore as its first 5G city in Maryland a couple weeks ago, and there's a ton of excitement around the rollout. I think people generally understand that it's going to radically improve data speeds on wireless devices. But beyond that, I think many folks may not fully grasp what the technology is exactly and how 5G will impact our city, our residents, and our business community. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank you, Councilmember Costello, and obviously Shalonda and the rest of the Downtown Partnership team for allowing me to participate in today's discussion. I couldn't be more excited about Baltimore being the first 5G city named in Maryland. It really took a number of different people to help us get this over the goal line. It was honestly the city rallying around wanting to have this technology. You had many different agencies, including the planning department, which were very thoughtful in terms of how they want to try to roll out this technology and how they could position Baltimore for being named as the first city in the state of Maryland. So again, a huge team effort. I just wanted to at least put that out there that, you know, there's a number of city leaders that have just been championing technology because they understand that there's considerable benefits as a result of these investments being made in the city. In terms of what does this mean for residents and businesses, you know, beyond just the fast speeds, everybody knows that you can download really rich content, HD quality content in a matter of seconds. But for me, it's really about the technology itself, including the latency, which is basically the lag time that you have when you are having signals going back and forth between devices. You want to have the lowest level of latency or the lowest lag time possible. And so given that Baltimore has a rich history with the healthcare industry, we obviously have two wonderful institutions with Johns Hopkins and University of Maryland Baltimore Medical Center. When you think about 5G applications in the healthcare industry, think about robotics, the possibility of robotics being used for remote surgeries, or even telemedicine consultations for those real-time interactions between patients and physicians. You know, think about that patient on the way to the hospital. They can now have, you know, the opportunity, the physicians can now in real time be consulting with the patient to understand what are the symptoms that they're having before even getting to the hospital, which, you know, saving lives really comes down to, you know, having those engagements because things can happen in a matter of seconds or minutes. When you think about first responders, even being able to have that connectivity, that connective tissue for allowing first responders to interact with physicians as well. Again, when you're talking about matters of life and death being a matter of seconds or minutes, you know, having the best technology, having the best connectivity, and eliminating that latency and lag time is critically important. given the pandemic right now, we all have seen how technology has had an impact on everything that we do, and it's even more important now. So thinking about our small businesses in the downtown area and even throughout the city, they need real-time engagements with their customers. They can't have any of those interruptions. And when you're talking about contactless interactions, the wireless technology, 5G, makes those connections even more possible. Distance learning and education. A number of us that are at home right now, we have kids that are, doing their education through distance learning opportunities. Again, eliminating that lag time allows that real-time interaction between the teachers and the students, and also the students to be able to collaborate on assignments as well. And then lastly, I'll just say from a procurement standpoint, for those of you that are small business owners on the phone and are on the line and are looking to do business with larger Fortune 500 companies, it's a rule for our company that anybody that wants to do business with Verizon has to have a broadband connection. So in terms of securing procurement opportunities, in terms of being a part of the supplier ecosystem, so to speak, as a small business owner, you have to have those fast connections because things are happening very quickly. And if you don't have those connections, you can't be a supplier or a partner to Verizon. So when you start thinking about 5G and its applications across healthcare, education, public safety and first responders, procurement, and there's so many more possibilities. I just think that Baltimore having access and being able to tout itself as the first 5G city in the state of Maryland will be welcoming additional investment to the city and also bringing in more businesses, hopefully to create more jobs and create a better Baltimore.
Thank you. So I know that Verizon's work isn't just around 5G. Obviously, Verizon's been a strong partner to the city and in the region. And Verizon has really been integral in helping support critical issues for Baltimore City residents and businesses as it relates to education and workforce development. Those two issues, of course, are of particular interest, but can you drill down a little bit more into what Verizon is doing in the arenas of education and workforce development?
Yeah, absolutely. So, education is one of our big cornerstone issues as a company. As a technology company, we recognize that we need to be on the leading edge of creating the pipeline of talent for the jobs of tomorrow. And so it really starts in the classroom with our K through 12 students. So earlier this year, back in February, we announced the Verizon Innovative Learning Program at 5 Baltimore City public schools. And as a part of that effort, we provide each student and each teacher a Chromebook, connectivity with a 4-year data plan. So that's wireless connectivity to the Chromebook device, and also STEM programming as well, and also provide instructional engagement for a technology coach that is designated by the school itself. So when you think about and Shalonda talked about this at the beginning of the webcast here about digital divide, digital equity, we call it digital inclusion. There's so many different aspects to solve for the challenges that are inherent with the digital divide. You got to solve for the demand piece, you got to solve for the supply piece, and then you got to think about it as being sustainable. So when I look at the latest statistics that I've seen from the ABLE Foundation, where I think 40% of Baltimore residents don't have a broadband internet connection, that's a real problem right there. You're talking about 40% of all the households in Baltimore don't even have a broadband connection. So they're not even a part of the digital conversation to start with. You add on top of that 33% or approximately 33% don't even have a device. So if you have a connection and you don't have a device, it doesn't solve for the issue. Same way, if you don't have the connection, but you do have the device, again, that doesn't get anybody anywhere. So we really have to marry together the connectivity, solve for that. We have to get and solve for making sure that people have access to devices. And then how do they use the technology? How do they use the software? How do they use the program? So as part of our Verizon Innovative Learning School initiative, we really want to make sure that we're taking a holistic approach to providing connectivity, providing devices, and providing that technology utility so that kids and teachers can leverage that technology for the jobs of the future. Because at the end of the day, technology is in everything that we do. And so we want to make sure that all of our Baltimore City public school students, have the platform and have the foundation to be able to pursue those careers in technology, or those that are impacted by technology. So shifting gears a little bit towards the workforce development piece, which also has that technology tie-in, we also announced an initiative through a $100,000 grant with the Ministers Conference in Baltimore and vicinity in March of this year. And this is a strict workforce development initiative where we worked with 9 Baltimore City churches. They set up a computer lab inside the church and basically provided upskilling and reskilling programs for folks that are looking to maybe change their career path, change that trajectory. Maybe they were looking for the opportunity just to learn more about technology. They just were technologically deficient. And so with that tech training, again, provides a more robust, a more engaged workforce. And again, during this pandemic, where particularly our restaurants have been impacted and our waiters and waitresses may have had to look for different jobs as a result of some of these closures. Now you're giving folks an opportunity to, again, pursue a path for a sustainable job, leveraging technology, getting new skills, and being much more attractive to employers that are looking for talent to be able to grow their businesses as well. So I look at this as an opportunity for folks that are looking to look to new careers, to look to new industries, to do work, an opportunity to pivot, to get a second chance, and to really create an economic output and opportunity for themselves and their families, and not be able to run in place as a result of the pandemic.
I think you may be muted there, Councilman.
I'm trying to get a little fancy with the space bar short, but
this is why council member, this is why we need 5G. It's that latency. I mean, that's a perfect example right there.
5G is going to fix it, hopefully. It's really interesting. I'm struggling with the space bar here. The pandemic has really changed everything about the way we interact, from learning and entertainment to conducting business, even how we order food. Shalonda, Eric, I don't know about you, but I've got about 8 more Zooms on my calendar for today. So hopefully I'm going to figure out the spacebar thing before the end of the day. But the speed of change since the start of this pandemic has just been tremendous. Baltimore's known as a city of neighborhoods, nearly 300 neighborhoods. How can we make sure that all of our neighborhoods are engaged in this changing landscape, from downtown to neighborhoods uptown to East and West Baltimore, South Baltimore, et cetera? Can you talk a little bit about some of the relationships you have with community partners throughout our city and why they're so important to Verizon?
Absolutely. I mean, look, it takes a community. And if you think about the analogy of of being in a canoe. You know, in order to row faster, you know, you got to row in unison, right? And so you really want to bring all stakeholders to the table to be able to engage. You may not be able to see eye to eye on everything, but at least you have that knowledge in terms of how can we go towards a common goal and pursue it in a way that everybody feels like they have input. And so one such organization that we've done a lot of work with, particularly around digital inclusion and tech training, is Bite Back. They just recently opened up an office this year. They're originally based in Washington, D.C., right down the road. But a lot of the work that they're doing has been around digital literacy programming. So again, introducing technology neophytes to computers and devices. They do certification for those that are a little bit more technically astute. So they provide certification training and provide career development paths for those that want to pursue a career in information technology. And then they take it a step further by getting folks into programs that assist in job readiness and career support. So at the end of the day, again, you have an organization like Bite Back, who just opened up an office in Baltimore that is creating these pathways for economic mobility and success and reskilling and upskilling, which is really critically important. And it's the partnership with Bite Back we've had for a long time. Like I said, it originally started with them in DC, but we're really excited about them being able to expand into Baltimore. And you're going to hear more about that partnership in probably the days and years to come. I also mentioned as 5G and its importance to healthcare. We provided a grant to the Johns Hopkins Business School as well. This is a $25,000 grant that's in support of their initiative that's called Leading a Diverse Society. So we've talked a lot about, again, digital inclusion, and we've seen out there the numerous issues around racial and social injustice. And so the business school has really taken this initiative to attract and educate and mentor the next generation of minority business leaders. As part of that program, they have a summer business academy. And this is a 1-week program where they bring in juniors and seniors from historically Black colleges and universities to, again, enhance their academic experience around business and get them prepared if they decide to go out into the workforce upon graduation or decide to go to grad school to pursue an MBA or another graduate program and assist in their professional development. So that grant to the Johns Hopkins Business School has been really quite awesome. I think it's timely given some of the social and racial injustice issues that are front and center nationally and even in Baltimore. And so we really, again, forward to that partnership continuing as we go along. And then Councilmember Castillo, you talked about neighborhoods and just the rich community and the diversity of the city of Baltimore. We really have this awesome partnership with a company called Adcore Magnet Systems. They're based in Highlandtown, so it's just right outside the downtown area. But this is a Baltimore-based, women-owned business that supports engineering and manufacturing. So when you think about, again, technology, you need those engineers, you need that pipeline of talent in manufacturing in order to produce these great technological outcomes. So they've been a really great partner to us as part of our 5G first responders lab. So they're doing a lot of innovation and tinkering in our labs that will produce really good technological outcomes for our first responders. They've been creating sensors for real-time engagement. They also are creating sensors that also provide for remote video streaming to, again, allow firefighters, police, and other first responders to engage with each other in real time. So again, when you think about community partnerships that extend from education, tech training, engineering, and technology, it's just been a really rich relationship that we've had with the city of Baltimore, and we expect it to grow. So those are just three such examples of how we've been engaged throughout various areas throughout the city.
Thanks, Eric. And as Shalonda knows, I can't help myself, but I go off script at least once every single week of Downtown Download. I want to touch on a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, which is smart cities. Smart cities are essentially municipalities that use information and communication technologies to increase operational efficiency, share info with the public, and improve both the quality of government services as well as citizen welfare. And a number of these initiatives include things like, and many of which we already have in Baltimore, speed light and red light cameras, license plate reader technology, truck monitoring cameras, shot spotter, which is gunshot detection, our City Watch camera network, our traffic control systems, our kiosks, and big shout out to Downtown Partnership with the Ike kiosks, who's really been a leader in our city on that. On-demand pricing for parking meters, pay-by-plate parking meters, installation of EV charging stations, air quality monitoring, water quality monitoring, smart street lighting, GPS smart waste management systems. You can tell I'm a nerd and I could go on and on and on about this, but I'm going to stop there. But Eric, can you talk a little bit about the work that Verizon is doing in terms of smart city initiatives and how 5G will tie into all of that and help accelerate that work?
No, absolutely. And, that's a great question. And you're obviously deep into the weeds on a lot of this stuff, which is really important because when you start talking about smart city technology and all the reasons you gave, we'll just start with transportation. So as we, move to an environment where maybe there's going to be autonomous vehicles, you got to make sure that each vehicle is talking to one another in real time, very low latency, so that we can eliminate accidents in the streets. But even more importantly, when you talk about smart city technology, it's really about how do you leverage efficiencies? And particularly during a time of a pandemic when the city's coffers might be tight, those budgets might be tight. You really want to maximize and be efficient with the resources that you have. So in the area of transportation, as you talked about, smart meters, where folks can just go ahead, find a place to park, go ahead and use their app, pay for the amount of time that they need, and they're off and running. And it's all automated. You don't need somebody going by to check the meter to see if it's expired or not. Even traffic flow in the downtown area, where you're talking about visitors coming to the inner harbor and people going to the office, or people going downtown to, have a bite to eat. Sometimes it gets congested in that inner harbor area. So, having that smart meter technology where you can understand the traffic flows downtown, and instead of having a set time for when that traffic light goes green for 30 seconds, if there's going to be a lot of traffic in that area, go ahead and let it go for a minute, so that, again, that traffic flow can be much more efficient in those congested areas when you have major sporting events or other events where hopefully we'll be getting back to after the pandemic, where people are concentrated in a small area. For first responders, again, having access to that real-time information, on their devices makes everything a lot easier and efficient for them to be able to address certain concerns throughout the city. Smart lighting, putting a light on a timer doesn't make any sense. You really want to make sure that you're managing your energy consumption so that when it does become dusk or nightfall, that LED light can go on. And as soon as it's sunrise, that LED light goes off, saving the city, tons of money in terms of those sort of efficiencies. So I look at smart tech as being a conduit for providing efficiency to a city, and particularly right now where municipalities and cities are really challenged with trying to pay for certain public services. If done the right way, I think you can find a real cost savings by leveraging smart city technology. And 5G is going to be the platform and the foundation for making all that happen.
So thank you, Eric. And I want to switch gears a little bit here for a moment and talk about Port Covington. And Port Covington's probably the second largest urban redevelopment project in the country right now, behind Hudson Yard in New York City. And it's more than just new buildings and waterfront space. There's been an announcement about the creation of a tech hub there. Already in Port Covington, we have City Garage. Some of Under Armour's world-leading research is done at that facility. They're extremely innovative. There recently was an announcement of the creation of this tech hub, included the relocation of 3 companies to Port Covington, Allegis Cyber, Data Tribe, and Evergreen Advisors. What role does technology play in terms of supporting and even accelerating economic development opportunities in this part of Baltimore? And before you answer that, I do want to point out that we have an extremely strong tech center in Baltimore City, and it's not just limited to Port Covington. For example, world-leading companies in the IT realm that are headquartered in the 11th district and in and around downtown, including Catalyte, Fearless, Zero Fox. So it's something we've seen spread throughout the city and that we've really welcomed with open arms. But talk a little bit about that economic development around IT in Port Covington and how that integrates with what Verizon's doing.
Absolutely. And, Councilmember Costello, I think you hit the nail on the head there, where you're talking about technology is immersive, and all parts of the city need technology and connectivity. But as it relates to the Port Covington project, connectivity is really paramount to everything that you're trying to do in terms of being a tech hub or another tech hub within the city of Baltimore. I think Marcus Stevens said it best. He's the executive creative director for Plank Industries, and he said that there will be unique and ubiquitous connectivity at every interface in Port Covington. Data is everything. Not only will it be that convenient, but it will help businesses understand customer needs and deliver the live, work, and play experience. So when you think about that, data is everything. So a lot of the companies that you just named, these are cyber security companies like Data Tribe and Allegis Cyber. You talked about, Evergreen Advisors being a financial firm that is supporting a lot of these entrepreneurial and innovative efforts. Connectivity is going to be the backbone and sort of the DNA for Port Covington. This will position, I think, Port Covington to again create that excitement, create that economic development opportunity to be realized, where we're going to welcome people back into the city. This pandemic, and we've seen it all across the country, has really pushed people out of the city. They've been looking to going to the suburbs or outer suburbs or even rural areas. But Port Covington is such an important project. Like you said, number 2, just behind Hudson Yards in New York City. And that's no slouch when you think about it at the end of the day. There's a lot of money on the line here. We want to create an environment where people have all the tools in the toolbox to be able to live the way that they want, to be able to work the way that they want, whether they go back to an office setting or work from home. We want to provide that flexibility. But again, data is in everything that we do, and we need it to make real-time decisions. And so having 5G and all sorts of other speedy technologies in Port Covington will attract other businesses that want to grow, which will also bring in new talent, which will also make the city more attractive for people to want to come back and to establish their lives and their families in the city. So when you think about the economic multiplier here, it's critically important that we see Port Covington succeed. And it's really going to start about how do we have the most connectivity, the most technology available so that people can live and work and play the way that they need to. So I'm really excited about it. I think the ability to create jobs, to create a pipeline of talent, to bring in additional investment, making that sustainable is going to be the most important aspects of the Port Covington project. And I'm just really excited about it.
Thanks, Eric. I've got one more question, and then I'm going to transition over to Shalonda. I know we've got a number of questions from our audience. If you could just briefly hit on, and I want to transition from a comment you made with respect to Port Covington, and which has been a recurring theme of today's webinar, what seems like every webinar that Shalonda and I do. But with respect to COVID-19, can you touch on a little bit about what Verizon has been doing? As we know, you're involved with communities across the city, but specifically with respect to COVID-19 relief efforts.
Absolutely. And I'll just touch upon a couple of them because I know we only have about 18 minutes left. And, I want to answer some questions from some of the folks that have limited time, but, wanted to spend it here. So I appreciate them joining us on this webinar. So first and foremost, when the pandemic hit back in March, we went to the Federal Communications Commission and we signed the Pledge for America, which is basically our pledge to our customers, particularly our low-income customers that may be economically challenged, but we realized that they needed these broadband connections, particularly if they needed to work from home or if their kids needed to conduct their distance learning assignments. So we made sure that, number one, that we extended that $19.99 a month program till the end of the year. So we started that, I believe, back in April. We also made sure that, given the challenges in this environment that has really put a hurting on families' pocketbooks, we also provided relief in the term of not cutting off their services. So if they were unable to pay their bill, all they had to do was just contact us and just tell our customer service representative, hey, I've been impacted by COVID-19. I can't pay this month's bill. And we would honor that, and we did not cut them off. So those are a couple of the ways from a corporate perspective that we wanted to make sure that we upheld our Pledge for America pledge, so that, again, being that technology is critically important, being connected is critically important, that nobody's left behind. And, we made sure that that answer to the pandemic was digitally inclusive, because we know the digital divide is real. So making sure that people weren't cut off was really important. The second aspect of this, again, and I've been hitting home this theme around education, and I see that you're wearing a Morgan State pullover, so this is really timely. We entered a partnership during COVID-19 with Morgan State University. It was a $50,000 grant in terms of their COVID relief efforts to make sure their students that are matriculating at the university, if they couldn't afford their broadband connection, or if they couldn't get any sort of distance learning resources made available to them, we made sure that that grant provided the necessary connectivity or the devices so that students could continue to learn in this challenging environment. So we're really excited about that effort in terms of providing remote access for learning for those students. Another aspect of that Morgan State grant partnership, the university opened up a makerspace as well, so that students could present ideas for creating PPE equipment, devising some sort of solution to folks that have been impacted by the coronavirus and the pandemic. So having that makerspace made available where students could submit their ideas, the university could then take those ideas, use 3D images, using a 3D printer to make PPE equipment for those that were on the front lines of the pandemic. And then Morgan State also, beyond the COVID-19 relief efforts, they've also been a great partner for us with the Verizon Innovative Learning Schools, which I talked about earlier today, where they have gone in, and those students that have gone through that K through 12 education, you know, Morgan State has basically extended a hand to say, when you're done with your high schooling, come to our university. You know, they provided an opportunity and again, a pathway for, you know, kids that may not be getting the motivation to pursue a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree after high school. Morgan State has really extended that hand to make sure that those kids that have been a part of the Verizon Innovative Learning Program through the elementary, middle school, and high school ranks, that they further their education to go to college. So it's really been a great partnership with Morgan State. And again, a lot of the COVID-19 relief efforts that they've been leading on in terms of the makerspace and the access, making access available to those students that couldn't afford it, have been extremely critical.
Thanks, Eric. I'm going to turn it over to Shalonda.
Thank you so much, Councilman Eric. This is such good stuff. It's a ton of questions. So we're going to have to do this almost like popcorn. You're going to have 1 minute to answer each
Okay.
here. But I do want to start off, Sue and team, because there was a couple people who I know were trying to log into and see the closed captioning piece. Our team apologizes. It's not working. We had it working, I think, in adding the video, something happened. Councilman, I may try to blame it on the not having 5G now. If the space bar works out, I'll say that. But seriously, we're gonna send out this video. When we send out the webinar, we'll make sure that closed captioning is added, and we'll have that for the next one. So just to all who are listening there. This question came in early, and you've answered a lot, so it may not be as important, but in a couple words, I mean, there are people who are still skeptical about 5G, and it's a question about whether or not this is fake news. You know, is 5G fake news?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Is it fake news? No. I think if you look at the announcement that we made, you know, you had leadership from the state level with Governor Hogan, you had our current mayor, Mayor Young, you had the city council president, Brandon Scott, all touting the importance of why this is important for the city of Baltimore and why it's on the leading edge. So it's not fake. There's also that company in Cupertino, California, called Apple. They've created the iPhone 12, which is obviously 5G compatible. We were excited that our CEO, Hans Vesper, was also a part of that announcement. So it was a really exciting time for our company. And look, it's real. It's here. It's in Baltimore. We've been, you know, working tirelessly. Our network engineering team has been building a great small cell network to enable 5G. You're going to have it at Camden Yards when they get back to the baseball season after the World Series this year. You're going to have it. You have it at M&T Bank Stadium where the Ravens, hopefully they'll make it to the Super Bowl this year. So it is real. So I'm really excited about the prospects. It's only going to grow. We want to make sure that, again, to eliminate these sort of digital divide concerns, that we build citywide. So more to come. This is just really an exciting time, and it's only just the beginning.
The short answer, absolutely not. Got you. On to the next transition to the schools. And they're talking about, you know, and I know we talk a lot about downtown, but even outside of downtown, what's the timeline or rollout of the tower upgrades they said around the schools? And also for students in those neighborhoods that, you know, are not served as well.
So I do want to make a correction. We're not talking about towers. We're talking about small cell equipment. So you're literally talking about equipment that can be placed on light poles throughout the city. And it's interesting because these small cells, aptly named because they're so small, they're aesthetically pleasing. And so we really tried to make it camouflage and integrate it to the designs of the community. So a lot of times you wouldn't even know that you're probably walking by a small cell site. So in terms of the timeline, I don't have a timeline right now. It's one of those things where it takes many, many years to be able to roll out this technology. We started our small cell build about 18 months ago. We're still continuing through that effort. So stay tuned.
All right, good. Short answer, stay tuned. Next question, is it possible to get a list of the churches participating in the upskilling and reskilling computer lab program?
Absolutely. And so after this program, I'll be happy to share that list with you, Shalonda, Councilmember Costello, and any of the other members of the Downtown Partnership Baltimore team to be able to share with our audience.
That's perfect. So we'll make sure that we get that information out. Thank you on that. And then this one you sort of answered, what infrastructure changes will happen in order to provide the city with 5G for all? So you somewhat.
Yeah, basically we're building out a network of small cells to enable 5G technology throughout the city.
Which is perfect. Thank you. You have a few more minutes, so we want to make sure we get them all in if possible.
Okay, good.
What program will be available to help small businesses who might be resistant to change? Like what kind of things can they use to learn about ways 5G can improve their business?
Well, look, I think I said it from the outset when I talked about procurement. If you want to do business with a big company, particularly like a Verizon, you got to have the technology in place. If you don't have a broadband connection, it's very difficult for us to be able to work together in terms of getting the right access to services, for you to be able to follow what are the next steps we want to take in terms of investing in certain technologies or certain lines of business. So it's critically important that as a small business owner, you're up to speed on the variety of technologies that are available so that you can stay connected not only with your customers, but also throughout the supply chain.
Perfect, thank you. Next question, is Verizon extending their 5G service to the transportation industry? And if not, how could they learn more about how to integrate it into their business?
Yeah, so we have machine-to-machine technology that 5G will enable, and I've talked a little bit about autonomous vehicles as well. So we've had some projects with, for instance, the University of Michigan. I know it's outside of our state, but that was one particular program which focused on transportation and 5G. So I just encourage folks to go to our website and take a look at all the interactions of 5G that we've taken thus far, and that's how you can get engaged with the transportation piece.
Which is great. Thank you so much. Next question. Verizon's innovative learning program sounds terrific, so that's good. Do you know how many students have been served this school year in Baltimore City? And how would students apply for the program?
So I believe at this point, and don't hold me to the numbers, I think it's a couple thousand students at five schools across the BCPS landscape. In terms of applying, our partner Digital Promise, if you go to their website, that they can provide you information about how to apply for the program. I know in terms of qualifying, the school needs to be a school that receives, I think 85% of the students receive some sort of economic aid. So that's one of the qualifiers. But if you go to the Digital Promise website, that's our partner that does all of our Verizon Innovative Learning Schools, you can learn more about the information there.
Which is good. Thank you so much. This next question really starts to talk about, because you use the word inclusivity. And so it's asking to describe what that means to different groups. How are the households, communities, partnerships, how are they identified?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, I have a fabulous team that's in Baltimore, Paul Plymouth, Mario Costa Velez, also Joe Askew, and my boss, Tony Lewis. We always are constantly thinking about community. We don't want to dictate anything. We want to listen first. And I think that's so critically important to any sort of conversation, particularly now, So if you want to really truly engage with the community and be collaborative and be genuine, you got to go to the community and listen to them first, as opposed to me telling them about what's Verizon's initiatives and trying to fit it in there. I want to know the good, bad, the ugly, the opportunities, the challenges, all those sort of things. And so, at the end of the day, the Verizon team in Baltimore, we want people to call us first. We want to be thought leaders. We want to be inclusive. And, the only way to make that happen is to be transparent and to call us first. We'll give you the information, but we want to make sure that we're hearing from all sectors and all aspects and all community groups, because everybody has different needs and different important agendas. So we just want to be at the table talking to everybody.
Wonderful, thank you. I think that's a great sound off. We have just one last, that's a statement. And it's just, this is from Sue, and it's saying having 5G will influence the FIFA World Cup 2026 and their decision of where to play. We are under consideration. We're one of 17 cities that's currently being considered. So kudos there as well. Councilman Eric, I can't thank you enough for just sharing this information and for being a resource. Councilman, I want to bring it back to you for a couple words before we close it out, and then you can transfer it. And just, Eric, if it's anything else you want to say last.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Shalonda. And Eric, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're engaged in the downtown partnership. You're engaged in all things Baltimore. I can't tell you how much we appreciate it, and just looking forward to working with you on a lot of the initiatives we discussed today, as well as many more down the road. Shalonda.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Eric, were you going to say something, some parting words?
Yeah, I was just going to say no, thank you to all of you. And I really want to thank the staff at the Downtown Partnership of Baltimore. I'm so excited to be on the board and to really elevate and lead for change. I just want to create a better Baltimore. That's what it is at the end of the day. And it's really going to be incumbent upon us to be able to do it. So it's the board members, it's the community. We all have to rally around making sure that Baltimore is first and foremost aiming for this change. So Councilmember Costello, thank you for your leadership. Our office is in your district. So we are excited about, the work that we've done with you there. Shalonda, thank you as well for your leadership of the Downtown Partnership. It's not easy to be leading any organization during this pandemic. And to everybody else that participated today, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to listen to us talk about all the great things in Baltimore and 5G technology.
Thank you so much. You are right. My team rocks. So special shout out to Mike, Lauren, and Nicole. My board rocks. So Eric, thank you. Thank you, Councilman Costello. I saw other board members I see on the line. Alexa's listening, Sister Helen, Analea. I think I see Phyllis Seaman, and then our board chair, Mark Wasserman. And so the Downtown Partnership Board is in full effect today. So thank you all for tuning in. Please remember, you can get the webinar on our website, godowntownbaltimore.com, along with some other information. We do want to let you know that we have our next downtown download. So it's coming up on November 10th. We'll have Augie Chiesera, the president of the Greater Baltimore Chesapeake region of M&T Bank. He's also in my leadership class. Shout out to the leadership on there. So all of this information and more can be found on our website, godowntownbaltimore.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Don't forget to register for our annual meeting, November 12th, and join us for the Spooktacular on October 30th. See you then. Thanks so much.